What's up guys? Today I'm going to go over pitching, flipping, punching tricks to help you catch more bass this summer. With it hot, being the middle of July, this is one of the best times of the year to do pitching, flipping, punching, frogging. So today I'm really going to break down the bite and help you guys catch more fish with the tricks and tips that I've learned. So let's get to it. Ooh, that was a bite. Oh, got him, got him, got him, got him. Oh, come here, come here, come here. What'd I tell you with a flipping stick? Oh, there he is. Whoo, finally. It's about damn time. There he is, boys. Whew. So, I've been frogging my heart out. I've had 3 that come up and hit the frog, and right when I got here, and after that I didn't get a bite, and I finally had 2 more come up and roll at, but they just didn't want to hit it, wouldn't hit the follow-up bait. So I figured what I'm gonna have to do is just hit them in the head with this flipping stick, and that did it.
You have a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
What's your YouTube channel?
It's Real Jedi. Add me on Facebook. I'm always looking for somebody to come fishing with me. All right, guys, this is what I'm flipping with right here. 3/4 ounce weight. I got a 3/0 flipping hook, and this is a Love Bug Missile Bait D-Bomb. So what I did, I pitched up in here in this grass you guys can see, and it was probably about a foot back in the grass, and I let it fall, and I felt doop doop, set the hook. So I'm gonna talk to you guys a minute about my flipping setup here. So everybody, when they flip, most people think a heavy rod, extra heavy, you know, 65-pound braid. I go with 30 or 40-pound braid. This is Proline V2. It's real slick, so it goes through that grass and makes less noise as opposed to regular braid. Right? You pull that regular braid through there and it's like saw in the grass almost. 3/4 ounce weight, that's my go-to. 3/4 ounce weight is small enough to where it won't wear you out fishing with it all day, but it's big enough to punch down in that stuff. You just got to target the right holes with this stuff. And now my rod and reel, this is a Lew's SLX. It's an 8:1 gear ratio, and I want that high gear ratio so I can get it in there, stick him, and pull him out real quick. Or I can pitch my spot, and then when I'm done with it, I can reel it in to make the next retrieve really fast, so I can cover a lot more water. And my rod, this is an All-Star Series rod. Now this rod is a medium heavy 7 foot. And the reason I went with a medium heavy is because it's lighter and it doesn't wear me out fishing with it all day. And also with it being a medium heavy, it's got a softer tip, so it keeps that hook in the fish better whenever you stick him. So the stiffer the rod, the stiffer the tip, the less give it has, the more likely that you're gonna pull that bait out of that fish. But with this setup right here, I can pretty much pitch, flip all day long. It doesn't wear me out. And I pulled some tanks in with it. Some big boys. I just seen one right here. Now when I'm flipping, most of the time they're gonna hit it on that first drop. I drop it in a hole, or I'll pitch it to my hole, I'll let it fall. Most of the time they'll hit on that first drop. If they don't, I'll pump it back up and let it fall again. Normally I don't do more than about 2 pumps in there. I'll pull it up to the top of the mat and let it fall back down. Now if I know there's a fish in there, if I've seen him in there and I throw right on his head and he don't hit it after the first 1 or 2 pumps, I will keep working it in that hole, trying to agitate him into biting. And I like to do more pitching than I do flipping. So a lot of people come up on a spot and they're real quiet and they kind of fan the area, drop their weight down in the air, and then they move on. What I like to do, unless I'm hunkered down on a spot where I really know the fish are at, kind of move water, keep moving, and I'll cover water and pitch that bait in the spots that look good, and then I'll keep on moving. Now if I get in a spot where I get a couple bites, I might hunker down there for 20-30 minutes or so. If I don't keep getting bit, I'll keep it moving. The traditional flipping style, which my dad taught me, is you pull up on a spot real quiet, and you just sit there and you pitch your bait in all the areas, and then you move to another spot. But doing that just takes a lot more time, and I know some people that do it and catch a bunch of big fish. But what I have done is the other way, and it consistently works. Moving water, pitching to those spots that just look like prime spots, and then keep it moving. So you got to figure out where the fish are in that stuff. Are they in the back? Are they in the front? So I'll start out. A lot of times I'll pitch way in the back, and I'll let it sink to see how deep it is. And let's say if it's only 6 inches deep right there, that's probably not deep enough for a bass to be in there. I don't think there's going to be one in there. But with me doing that, I can pull it out of that pocket, drop it in the next pocket in front of it, and then continue doing that back to the boat. And what that allows me to do is judge the water depth between the bank, which is the solid bank, to the boat. So once you identify where the fish are at, so if they're way back up in the mats, then I'll start targeting way back up in the mats. But if I'm only getting bit within the first foot of that grass or mat or whatever kind of vegetation I'm fishing, I will only start targeting the outside edges, because you're just wasting time at that point. So the key to flipping is identifying a pattern where the fish are at. Sometimes you pitch your bait in there and it'll drop to the bottom, and they'll pick it up off the bottom, or they'll hit it on the fall. Sometimes you pick it up, and when you go to pick it up, they'll hit it on the way up close to the mat. So if I identify that the fish are hitting it up close to the mat, I'll spend more time keeping my bait up closer. I might pitch it in that hole and not let it drop all the way down, depending on how deep it is. So that one there, he was about a foot back in the grass mat. And you also got to kind of target what kind of vegetation that they're in that you want to be pitching in, because here in South Georgia, there's tons of different kind of grass. In this lake right here, you got 40, 50 different kinds of vegetation growing. You got hyacinths, you got duckweed, and most of the time, the bulk of that fish are going to be in one kind of grass. Sure, you'll catch fish flipping in all the different kinds of grass. There's hydrilla, milfoil, but you will identify exactly what type of the grass you're looking for when you start catching a fish, and that really helps you pinpoint it in, and you can really hone your technique in, cover more water, catch more fish when you identify that pattern. And another key thing that I do when I'm flipping, guys, I'm always watching for the grass move, watching for a swirl in the water, watching for a minnow jump, because any of those little signs could be a trigger that there's a bass in there. And if I see any kind of movement, if I see grass move, even if it looks like it was a minnow or a little fish, I pitch my bait up in there. Because that little fish may be moving because there's a big fish down there. You just don't know. But this time of the year, it's hot, July, those fish love, ooh, that was a bite. No, it must have been a brim. He pecked it. But this time of the year, when it gets really hot, especially when the sun's out, those fish gravitate to cover. Those fish they hunker down and cover somewhere, and they just sit. They're not really in a feeding mode, but if anything comes by them, hit them in the head with it, they'll bite it. Which is why I'm doing this. I've been out here frogging and throwing a fluke, and I've seen a couple fish, and I've had some bites, and it's just, I cannot get them to bite. Not get them to commit. I had them chase and roll over. Ooh, that was a bite. He's on there. Got him, got him, got him, got him. Oh, oh, oh. Oh yeah, that's another good bass. Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Just gotta hone it in, boys. Look at that, 2. I haven't been pitching now for 30 minutes, and now I've done caught 2. Now, I also want to talk about the area that I'm targeting, what I'm looking for. So, this is a unique area of the lake. There is a channel right here, which is the deepest spot of the lake. and then you got a bank right on the edge of that channel. So those bass will move out into that channel and feed, and then they will come back and hide on this bank. So if you've got any area on your lake during the summertime that has the fastest transition from shallow to deep, that's where the big bass are going to be at, because the bass have to travel less to feed. A lot of the small bass hang out up here in these cover, all right, and they eat, you know, little bluegill and tiny fish that have hatched out that are hiding. But the big bass, they come out of this cover and they go out into that deep water to get big shad or big bluegill or whatever it is that they're feeding on. And they'll go out and they'll feed, and then they'll come back and they'll hide in the stuff. In detecting patterns so far, what I've identified is these fish are in anywhere from 1 to 3 foot of water. If I pitch in anything and it's 6 inches deep, haven't been getting bit. And they're also in this stuff, I believe it's duckweed. You see it growing out here. It's kind of sparse and it's like little bitty green leaves on it. I think that stuff's called duckweed. But both of those bites that I got were in the duckweed. Now that last one, I actually threw it in the duckweed and I pulled it out and then I let it fall again. And then whenever I let it fall, he thumped it. So that's another reason I like pitching, because you cover all the area back to the boat if you work your bait right. So if I, oop, that was a bite. Got him, got him, got him. Oh, we own them now, boys. It's a warmouth, holy cow. Look how big that warmouth is, guys. Look at that. That thing is so fat. We will put him in the pond. So guys, one of the reasons I like this missile bait is because it doesn't have the vibe crawls on it like a U-vibe, which that U-vibe pulls through the water more. So you need a bigger weight to really sink that thing down fast. This thing has got the flappers on it, so it sinks down really fast. And pull it back up really fast. Guys, I got up in this spot right here and I caught 3, so I kind of hunkered down, started fishing it really slow. And then I missed that one, and then I seen another one blow up. So I was trying to catch it, but I couldn't get any bite, so that's enough time. Ooh, I see something moving in the grass up there. Oh, it's a duck. Duck fooled me. So guys, whenever you're pitching or flipping, when you drop it down in there that first time and it hits the bottom, always pull up, and if you feel weight on your line, and a lot of times it'll feel like grass, don't try to jerk it out of that grass. So what I do is I just hold my line tight and hold it there for just a second. And a lot of times it'll be a fish and you'll feel him. You'll feel his tail moving, or you'll feel him biting on it. You can miss a lot of fish like that by thinking it's grass. So anytime when you're pitching or flipping and you think, is that a bite? You think it's grass, make sure and find out before you pull it out the grass. So when I'm pitching, what I like to do, I throw it out there, and if I see a good pocket in the back of the grass, I'll target that back pocket. And if I don't get bit in that back pocket, very easily I'll bring it up over the grass and let it fall back down in the next pocket. And I'll keep doing that until I get to the edge of that cover. And then once I get to the edge of that cover, I'll let it fall again. And a lot of times I've had bass that will follow it all the way through the cover. But then once you get it out of that cover and it falls, they'll come out that cover and they'll grab it. Being subtle is really the key. The more subtle you can be, the more subtle you can get your bait to hit that water, the less noise it makes upon impact, the better. Especially with a bigger bass. If you don't make any noise when you hit the water and you drop that thing right down in his face, it seems so natural, they just can't resist it and they just suck it up. But if you hit the water and you make a bunch of commotion, you know, you got a 3/4 ounce weight on it. And if you don't pitch that thing the right way, it hits the water, makes a big old splash. I mean, you'll still get bites, but not as many. I get way more bites whenever I'm presenting my bait in a very subtle manner. Let's say I throw way back up in here in one of these grass patches. See, I pitched it and it subtly hit the water. I did a little sideways pitch, it subtly hit that water, and then when I bring it through that grass to the next grass patch, I'll pull it through there really slow and subtle. Now if you jerk it through there, you move that grass all around, it spooks those fish. They see that grass moving, and that's unnatural. Now on the other hand, whenever you're fishing with a 3/4 ounce weight, sometimes you don't have that force to get down in the really thick mats. So what I like to do is I'll target a pocket, like a little opening that I know that my bait will be able to punch through. And if there's not one of those, if I punch it and throw my bait up there really high in the air, it'll punch through that stuff. I'll do it then. But most of the time I'm trying to get my bait in there and make it to where it makes as little noise and commotion as possible upon the entrance. And sometimes something else that I'll do is I'll throw it on top of cover. So if there's something really thick, I'll throw that bait on top of something really thick, and then I'll drag it into a pocket. That way it makes no noise hitting the water. So whenever you're flipping, you gotta get really, really close and make short range contact. Now, a lot of people use a longer rod, and they do this kind of pitching here, where they grab their bait and drop it in a hole. And that's good. I mean, it works. But personally, for me, the time it takes me to reel it in and grab that bait takes more time than it takes for me to do a little underhand pitch. If you do it enough and you get good enough, you can perfect that underhand pitch where it hits the water and really doesn't make any noise. Oh, that's a bite. Well, guys, I missed another one. Honestly, that one felt kind of like a brim. I probably should have stuck him a little bit harder. All right, guys, I just seen something on top of water where I pitched at. Looked like a minnow or a small fish, but I dropped it right on top of him. So since I know that there's something there, I don't know what it is, I'm gonna pump it up 3 or 4 times, jiggle that bait around, try to keep it in that strike zone longer to give that fish more time to decide if he wants to bite that bait or not. So guys, I think I've gotten out of the strike zone right here. The bank and the cover looks different than what I was getting bites in. So this isn't what I'm looking for, but I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep covering water because you never know, there could be one in here. But what I'm gonna do in a minute, I'm gonna try this different kind of area. And if I don't get bit pretty soon, I'm gonna crank it up and I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go look for more area like where I was flipping at and actually getting bites. Now, whenever you're pitching and your bait first goes in there, normally I got my line free spooled. And my free spool is loose enough that it applies no tension and that bait falls freely. But while it's going down, I'm watching my line. And a lot of times if you watch your line and one bites it on the way down, you'll see them. You'll see it bite that line. You'll see your line jerk or a thump. And it takes practice. You know, your bait may be falling down, it may hit a piece of grass. But if you do it enough, you'll get in the rhythm. Ooh, there went something. You'll get in the rhythm to where you can identify if it's a bite or not. Now here in Georgia, you're flipping, you get a lot of bites that aren't bass. Brim, mudfish, gar, I've even caught crappie flipping. I miss a lot of fish flipping that aren't bass. And I catch a lot of fish flipping that aren't bass. Over time, guys, I've pitched enough to where usually I can tell if it's a bass or not by the way they bite it. A lot of times when a mudfish bites it, it'll be a real hard thump because those mudfish have pretty much got crushers. Those mudfish sit on the bottom, they eat snails and mussels and all kind of other nasty stuff. So they've got really strong teeth and really strong jaws. And a lot of times when they bite it, they don't just inhale it and gulp it in, they'll chomp, chomp, chomp on it. So whenever I feel that chomp, 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 most time I know it's a mudfish. And a mudfish's mouth is really hard. So a lot of times, ooh, that was a bite. Got him! Oh, come out of there. Now guys, when you got one, you want to hold your rod tip down. You see here, I've got mine under the water. Oh, that's another good one. Yes, sir. Let's go, let's go. Look at that, boys. Another solid one flipping. That's 3 solid flipping ones in the boat so far. So I want to show you guys my hook. I haven't shown you this yet, but this is a trocar hook. It's got like a diamond cut on the end of it. With this lighter rod that I'm using, it's a medium heavy. That medium heavy rod doesn't have as much force to stick like a 5/0 hook and pull it out that bait really good. So that's why I downsized my hook. That 3/0 hook is smaller in diameter and it goes in the fish's mouth with less force. Fishing with this medium heavy rod, if I put like a 5/0 hook on there, I really got to hammer it to get that hook in him. So that's why I'm using a smaller hook. And what I've found since I've downsized to a smaller hook, specifically these hooks with a diamond cut on the end, the trocar, my hookup to boat ratio has skyrocketed. Before I started using these hooks and I downsized, I was using a 5/0 hook and I would probably miss 50% of the fish I hooked. And since I've started using these hooks, my hookup ratio from getting the hook in the fish's mouth to getting it in the boat has went up to like 80–90%. So that's a huge difference. So guys, if you're pitching and you're not using a really stiff rod and you're hooking a lot of fish and you're getting off, you're missing them, try that. Try downsizing your hook. I don't know if I finished what I was telling you earlier, but that last fish that I caught, I threw it back in the mat and it fell in a pocket back in the mat. I pulled it up out of that pocket and let it fall again. And then I went to pull it to the top of the mat to pull it into the next pocket. And when I pulled it to the top of that mat, my line was over that grass. That's whenever he bit it. That's a fish. Got him. Nope, nope, stay down, stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. There it is, boys. Look at that. Got another one. So that one was on the other side of the channel over here. You guys probably couldn't see it, but I kept seeing fish hitting that matted stuff. So I started throwing at him and look what happened. He was in there. That's him. Now he bit it on the fall. So I threw it out. I watched my line, it sunk, it hit the bottom. When I pulled up, I felt weight. I didn't feel a fish. And I really never did feel a solid fish, but I felt a little bit of movement, so I set the hook. So with that one, I wasn't really sure if that was a fish or not, but I set the hook anyway. Another tip, guys, something that I'm doing here with my weight peg, you'll notice that this weight peg is only half of a weight peg. So where I go to buy my weight pegs at, all they had was the big size weight pegs. And now they make weight pegs size for different line. What I found with the bigger weight pegs is that it'll get hung up in the grass more. So what I did, I cut that weight peg in half before I took it off the wire and put it on the line. And that allows it to come through the grass better. If you look at it, guys, that weight's got more of a point on it, and that weight peg is actually sitting down in that weight. So it comes through the grass a whole lot better. You guys see how I just did that little pitch right there? When it hit the water, it barely made a sound. And this is where that 8.2 or 8.31 gear ratio rod really comes into play when you're covering water. You can pitch it in there, pump it a few times, you don't get bit, burn it back to the boat and right on to the next cast. A lot of people flip with a 7.61. For me, the faster the better. GoPro, stop recording. Oh, that's a fish. God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, it's a big one. It's a big one. It's a big one. Keep that rod tipped down, boys. I don't want him to come off. Oh, oh, no. No. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Oh, yes, sir. Look at that, boys. Look at that. All right. We're gonna weigh this one real quick. Scales are on 0. Well, scale says 3 pounds, guys, but I think he's like 4. I think my scales might be off. Now, guys, with that one, I pitched it in there. He was back in the thicker cover. So that was in the back of the pocket that I threw in. And whenever it hit the bottom, I didn't feel anything. I just felt weight. And I held on to it long enough. I felt him start moving, and I let him have it. And he was big. Now I want to check my line since I'm using 40-pound braid. I see some nicks in here, but you know what? Let me just go ahead. Let me go ahead and retie. I'm retying. I'm going to take out about 6 foot of my line at least, because I've been throwing in this grass and this cover, and that grass and cover will fray your line up over time. I actually have not retied this line in probably 5 or 6 fishing trips, but I'm looking at it right now after catching that big fish and the way they're biting. I'm gonna go ahead and take the time to retie, because that next one might be a 10-pounder, and I do not want to miss him. So what I'm tying on here is a snell knot. 8 wraps, the hoop-de-loop, tighten it up. Guys, I always leave a little bit of tag on here in case that knot slips. If you wrap it enough times, usually 8 or 9, sometimes I'll even go more if I'm using thinner line, you shouldn't have a problem with that knot slipping. Now, guys, whenever I'm pitching, I'm flipping, and I'm moving spots, if there's nothing to flip, I'll throw that creature bait out, that 3/4 ounce weight, and I'll work it like a swim jig. And I've caught some big bass doing that. Actually, I caught my PB in the river doing that, and it was 7 pounds. I threw it at the bank, and I hit the bank. I seen some grass move up there, and I fished where that grass moved at, and I got done with it. I didn't get a bite, so I just started reeling it in back to the boat, and about halfway to the boat, my rod loaded up. 7 pounder. I actually recently hooked one that might have been the biggest bass I've ever hooked in my life. Fishing a lake down in Florida. It's a private lake that not a lot of people have access to. But I did the same thing. I threw it at the bank, I jiggled it up a few times, I was reeling back to the boat. Halfway to the boat, my rod tip loaded up. That fish come and jumped out the water and broke my heart. I've caught several 10-pounders, caught 11-pounders. If you guys hadn't seen the video, go back and watch that video. I'll link it down below. Now, most of my big bass, my biggest bass, my 10-pounders, I've all caught with crankbaits, except the 12-pounder I caught on the bed. I didn't wear. I got it up, took pictures of it, let her go, because that was a farm pond. That's my pet. But you can see in the video, she looked every bit of 12, and she was 10 when I caught her the year before. I'm pretty sure she was 12. I caught her with a 12-inch worm. Old 12-inch Maggle Monster Red Shad. Now, a lot of other stuff that's good to flip that people overlook is trees. If anytime I see bushes hanging over in the water, I will purposely, let me see if I can point at these trees right here, you guys. You guys can see these tree limbs right here. Now, I will purposely throw at those tree limbs and try to get my bait caught in those tree limbs, where it goes down under those tree limbs. And of course, I always think, oop, that's a bite. God, got him. Oh shit, he come up. Fuck. Damn, guys, I missed him. Oh, it might have been a mudfish. That one felt big. He was in that tree limb. What I was saying though, guys, is whenever you pitch in a tree limb like that, you'll think, how the heck am I gonna get that fish out of there? And sometimes I don't get him out of there. Sometimes with a little bit of luck, I pull him on out of there. Not always though. Sometimes he gets away. He just did that time. Now, He didn't get away though because of the tree limb that time. I set the hook and I felt him head shake, and I think it was a mudfish. Because whenever you hook a mudfish, they'll do their head shakes. I mean, a bass does a head shake too, but a mudfish is it's a different feeling. So different, like catfish. When you hook a catfish, he always starts rolling. Well, a mudfish will do that head shake and then he'll start rolling too. Guys, another way to tell too, if it's a mudfish, a lot of times if you throw back in the same spot and he bites again, mudfish. You can sit there and throw it at mudfish and get about 4 or 5 times. A bass, you stick that sucker one good time, he ain't gonna bite again. Not unless he's on the bed or something. Very rarely do I miss a bass flipping and come back and catch him. Maybe with a follow-up bait. I'll never get him out of there. He bites it. Now guys, whenever I'm pitching and flipping bushes and timber, I like to pitch my bait in places where I think it'll be impossible to get it out of there. Because the chance is nobody else has pitched in there. And sometimes it is impossible to get out of there, but I would rather hook that fish and try to get him out of there than not stick him at all. Yep. Alright, bye. That's a bite. Oh shit, got another big one. Oh shit. Oh, he's just in the grass. He ain't as big as the other one. He's definitely solid though. Guys, we're killing it. Jeez. Look at this, boys. Another good one. This is insane. This full moon bite is where it's at. I got enough in the live well that I'm gonna take home. I don't want to put too much in there with that big fish. I don't want it to die. So that bass got a knot in my line. So I'm gonna have to retie again. But I really hate to stop and retie right now because it's peak bite time and these bass are just on fire. When you're watching this video, I want you guys to really pay attention how I'm holding my rod down in the water every single time I hook a fish. Now I don't know how many fish I've lost with a flipping because of that. So you got two things working against you with a flipping hook. You got a weight that's pegged, so when that bass goes to do a head shake, that pegged weight adds force for him to shake that hook. It definitely does not help with that weight being right there. And another benefit to my smaller weight peg is when I hook a fish, that weight peg slides easier and it'll go way up my line and not be stuck right there at that bass's head. It won't be stuck right there on the hook. So if it's stuck on the hook, that gives him more opportunity and more force to shake that hook. Also, the way these hooks are designed to come through cover really good, they don't have that super line like a wide gap hook. So a wide gap hook, you got a far better chance of that bass not shaking that hook off. With that flipping hook, he comes out of the water and shakes that head. Most of the time, that's it. Sometimes I get lucky and they'll do a head shake and I'll still keep them on there and get them in a boat, but most of the time they come up and do a head shake, especially a big one, it's over with. Also guys, when I hook a fish, I always keep my line tight. So there was one I pulled in yesterday that I caught flipping. I kept my line tight the whole entire time, and then whenever I got him in, his mouth was so wallered out, that hook just fell right out of his mouth. So if I would have lost pressure on that fish, more than likely, he would have shook that hook or it would have fell out of his mouth. Whatever it was in there that bit, I don't think he's gonna bite again. Oh, that's a fish. Got him. Another big one, another big one, another big one. Yes, sir. God. Guys, look at that one. Another good one. Now, I want you guys to look at this, where I got him with his hook. Right in the top of the mouth right there. He wasn't getting away from that. Look at that. Right in the bone. That's what I'm fishing with here, guys. Missile bait, D-bomb, love bug. Whew, it is hot. It is hot. So guys, this is what I'm flipping right here. All this brush and timber and mats. And I'm getting way back in there and all those sticks and limbs. And that's where I'm catching these fish at right now. Hooked him. Got him. Come on. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's huge, guys. It's huge. It's huge. Oh my God. It's big. Did he get off? Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Get out from under this tree before I get a wolf's nest. Guys, that is a freaking tank. Look at this fish. Guys, look at this fish. He's got to be 8 pounds. Let's weigh him. It says 512. I think he's bigger than 512. Guys, my scale says 512, but that bass is bigger than 512. Caught that fish you see up in this cover stuff right here. This thick stuff I threw way back in there over those logs and stuff. So when I hooked him, I didn't think I was going to be able to get him out of there, but I did. I did, guys. I got him out of there. That's what I was just talking about, like throwing in those places that you just think if you hook a fish, you'll never get him out of there. That's where big ones are at.